Hi there, I'm Timmy, and this is Timmy Wah and what have you with my lovely co-star, my super duper wife, Rachel. Hi.
I'm a co-star now.
You're a co-star, you graduated. Yes. You made it.
Woo!
You're going to be in the credits. I don't do credits, but let's pretend.
Okay.
Okay. So, we're in part 6 of our multi-part journey through all the rides and attractions at Disneyland Park in California. And today we're stepping out of Tomorrowland into the land of fantasy. Fantasyland is a fantastic... Can you say that? Fantasy is fantastic? It seems repetitive. Is a fantastic place of fantasy and dreams and wishes. And today, specifically, we're going to cover the Matterhorn Bobsleds, which is one of my favorite rides. And there's so many. Is it even useful to say that anymore?
It is, though.
Okay. Awesome. So thank you for joining us. I hope you guys have had a fantastic week. I say that word a lot now. I'm just noticing it. We're currently, even though you can't tell, we're at Disney World. When you're watching this, we're probably riding some cool rides at Disney World and checking that out. But through the magic of YouTube, we're here in our home. How do you do that? It's really cool. So let's get into that.
Green screen, right?
Green screen. No, we're not that fancy. All right, so let's talk. Let's get going. Let's talk about the Matterhorn Bobsleds.
So Matterhorn, I'll start by saying, has always been one of my favorites. I have clear memories of riding it as a child, growing up. I come from a family of 7, and I have a brother just older than me and a brother just younger than me, and we are the only kids that would ride the Matterhorn. So
wow.
The 3 of us would stand in line for hours at the Matterhorn while Mom took the rest of the kids on the other Fantasyland rides, and Dad went and got us all food. And it was so fun and scary at the same time. And back then, and I'll cover this a little bit later, but back then the seats were lap sitting, so front to back lap sitting. And so I always made one of my brothers sit with me because even though it was my favorite ride, I was scared to death every single time. And standing in line the whole time, I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. But it was still one of my favorite rides. So
I'm noticing a pattern with you. Your favorite rides are the ones that scare you the most, it seems.
Yes, very much so.
That's great. I agree with you. I'm the same way.
So anyways... and we have mentioned before that Wyatt has been riding this ride since he was 2,
right.
Almost 3,
because
he
was a champ.
Again, back then it was lap sitting, and he rode with his grandpa when he was 2,
right.
And just had a blast, and he would ride it over and over and over again. And even now, whenever Tim and I are like, oh, okay, we need a little bit of a break, Wyatt's like, can I go do a single rider on Matterhorn? And we're like, sure,
yeah,
go ahead. And he'll go do over and over and over again. So
absolutely,
still one of his favorites. Okay, the Matterhorn opened June 14th of 1959, and it actually opened in Tomorrowland.
Right.
So that I actually didn't know. I mean, it's right there, kind of in the center between the two.
Right.
And you can get to Tomorrowland going around either direction. But so it kind of, I guess, could be either way. But that's interesting that it actually opened in Tomorrowland.
Yep.
It is a tubular steel roller coaster, and it is the very first tubular steel roller coaster in the world.
Ever.
That's
amazing.
Yeah. Disneyland is awesome. The capacity, it actually has 20 trains when they're all running. 2 cars. Excuse me.
You can start over if you want.
The Matterhorn has 20 trains when they're all running. 2 cars per train, holding 6 riders total. So 3 riders per car.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And again, I'll touch base with it. 6 riders per car. Mm-hmm. And right now, after the last refurbish, there are 3 single seats each.
Right.
And so a total of 120 riders.
Now, it was conceived by Walt Disney in 1956 while he was helping film the classic movie that everybody's seen, I'm sure, called Third Man on the Mountain. Have you ever seen it?
I have.
I haven't. So I was being
All right.
sarcastic, but you have?
Yeah,
It's a good movie?
it's a good movie.
I'll have to see it. I wonder if it's on Netflix.
I
I bet
doubt
you'd be
it.
on
It's
Disney Plus. Can't wait.
Yes.
Okay, put it on Disney Plus.
I don't know if you'll like it, but
Okay, we'll have to see about that.
it's one of the old Disney classics.
So he was on an extended vacation with his family in the Swiss Alps, and he was also helping film that film, which happened in the Matterhorn mountain. And he saw that mountain, and he had this inspiration, and he went and grabbed at a store a postcard, and he wrote these 4 words on this postcard to Imagineer Vic Green, saying, "Vic, build this, Walt." So that's where this all started. Now, we all know, and I've said it so many times, that Walt Disney was just a visionary, and the man could see the future and just make things happen. And I'd love to do just a huge character study on the man himself, because just some of the stuff he did was just amazing. So that kind of started the whole thing. At the time in Disneyland, when they dug out the moat to the castle, they piled all that extra dirt up, kind of where the mountain is now, and it was basically used as a picnic or resting area, and it just had grass and some picnic tables, and it was just a hill, and people would just chill on it. And so Walt kind of wanted to do something more with that area than that, because that's kind of useless. But so they built the Matterhorn mountain, and it went through a lot of different refurbishments, like we already kind of mentioned, with the different car types, but mostly what it did, if nothing else in a more practical standpoint, is it served as a decorative facade for the central support pillars for the Disneyland Skyway. If you remember that, I have no memory of it. I know I've probably seen it because it was there until like 1994, but I don't remember it. I don't know that I ever wrote it. I don't remember. I could have, but anyway. So
I have a slight memory of it, and I remember my grandpa or my uncle, my dad talking about writing it and stuff.
I think there was problems with it because people would throw stuff off of it and spit and be obnoxious. And
that's the memories I have.
And get high on weed and stuff while they were up there. So I think there were some safety issues as well with that. So they ended up tearing that down. Like I said, in 1994 they closed it. But the mountain itself, and you can still see some of the evidence of it. There were some tunnels that went through the mountain where those Skyway cars would run through.
And aren't the cables still running through it?
I think that the structure is still there, because there's been talk that they wanted to go in and take that out, but they would have to pretty much take apart the whole mountain to do it. So
because it served as the structure.
Because it was part of it. Yeah. So that was pretty interesting. So one of the first refurbishments they did was in the 70s, the early 70s. That's also when it became a Fantasyland ride officially. They didn't move it, but they moved it into Fantasyland. So what they did is they named the 2 tracks, the Fantasyland track and the Tomorrowland track, based on what side you loaded on and what side they went through. And then that's also the area of time when they added Harold the Yeti. Now, that's not his official name, but that's what all the Imagineers and all the cast members referred to him as, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So they made that a little more of a engaging and fun and kind of thrilling ride when they added the Yeti.
So, as Tim mentioned, the Skyway was closed in 1994, and the holes were mostly closed up at that time.
Yeah.
And then in 2012, there was a 6-month, it was closed for 6 months for another refurbishment. And that's when they replaced those cars that had the front to back seating, and they replaced them with individual seating cars. And that's also when they repainted the exterior, and they put in these little glass beads that made it look like snow.
Right,
so
it was white
glowed.
paint otherwise.
Yeah. So it made it kind of glow, and it was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And in 2015, from January to May, they did another refurbishment, and they added projections and sound effects for the Yeti.
Right. So now there's
made it
like
really scary.
There's like a sheet of ice that they project the Yeti onto as he's kind of chasing
running
you.
and
So that's one of the big things they did.
And he just growls at you really ferociously.
And you hear his footsteps as he's chasing you. It's really, really cool.
It's really and you're just like, holy crap, what was that?
A really loud growl. You can even hear him growling and screaming from outside the ride as you're walking around in the pathways and stuff in the different lands.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So in 2017, FastPass was added. So that was actually a new and cool thing, because I didn't think they would ever do FastPass for the Matterhorn. Now, as you're facing the Matterhorn, it's kind of off to the left and behind you. So it's not super close, but
it used to
over
be
under the monorail tracks.
Yeah, it used to be like the smoking area.
Yeah.
They took that out and they replaced it with that FastPass distribution.
Yeah, so that's where the FastPass distribution is. And then in 2018, they shut down the regular queue and built an official queue. Now, if you remember, the queue used to go all the way around, and it wrapped around the Matterhorn itself. And it was kind of frustrating because people could kind of get in line anywhere.
Right.
And it felt like everyone was cutting.
Right.
And now they have an actual queue that wraps around, and
Yep.
A lot of it's covered and stuff, and so it feels a lot more official,
Right, and efficient, and it saved a lot of room. And Disneyland over the last couple of years has been doing this project, Snowflake, I think it was called, where they, I think that's probably the wrong name, but they basically have been like taking out all the extra planters and curbs and just trying to open the area up as much as possible. And so this was part of that, to open up that pathway between Tomorrowland and Fantasyland by between the lagoon and between that and the Matterhorn Mountain.
Okay.
So that really cleaned up
Cleared
that
that up.
area really well. And then what happened even this year, we had some other happen. You probably heard in late summer, just a few months ago, they started having part of the facade crumble and fall apart on the Tomorrowland side. And I don't think it injured anybody. I don't think anything happened to anybody in particular, but they closed that whole side. And they're working on it now even. And so right now it's basically half a ride because you only have the Fantasyland track open. And so right now the lines have been super long. As far as I know, they're still honoring the fast passes and single riders. So that's good. But just be aware of that. I don't know how long that's going to take them to do. I don't know how extensive this repair is going to need to be. But that's getting kind of scary when the whole thing starts to fall apart.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the tracks real quick because I think that's something we need to talk about. And plus, there's a couple of tips and tricks you can learn from it.
Yeah.
So as far as the two tracks, they're almost identical. They kind of go together for most of the ride, and then there's some differences. So both of the rides have a max height as far as elevation, as far as how high up the mountain goes, is 80 feet high. And then they both travel at a maximum speed of about 27 miles per hour. So again, fairly slow. But again, because it's so sharp and curvy and droppy and kind of old, it feels really quick. And honestly, you get past that first lift, and most of the time you're just coasting down. And the way they designed that track is in a way that they don't have to use a lot of extra speed and propulsion. They actually have brakes built in along the track to slow you down before you hit these long, sharp corners. So that's pretty interesting. So 27 miles per hour is the max speed for both tracks. Now, where the tracks start to diverge, the Tomorrowland track is 2,134 feet long. So the total track length, if that matters to you, if you're into that kind of detail, and takes about 2 minutes 26 seconds to ride. So conversely, the Fantasyland track is a bit shorter. So instead of 2,100 feet, it's about 2,000 feet. So 2,037 feet long. And instead of 2 minutes and 26 seconds to ride, it's 2 minutes and 7 seconds to ride. So it's just about 20 seconds shorter. And then a tip, again, this doesn't apply now because there's just the one track open. But when you have both tracks, and if you want a smoother, easier, nicer ride, stick with the Fantasyland side because the way they designed that track is a lot smoother. It's not as jarring. It's not as bumpy. And it's still a heck of a ride. It's still just really, really bad.
I'll be honest with you. If you have a bad back, your tush is still going to be sore, and you're still going to get off it going, ugh. But if you take the Fantasyland side, it's less jarring. Yeah. It's a lot smoother than the Tomorrowland side.
And if you really want to get into roller coaster design and technology, there's a scientific method or principle behind designing rides like roller coasters, where it has, I don't know it, so I won't get into it because I don't know it well enough, but what I read is really interesting. It has something to do with how your body normally would move, and aligning and designing the track movement and motion with where your heart is. And so look that up. Hopefully that's enough for you to look up, but it's a scientific principle that they've discovered in the designing of these, and the reason I bring that up is because this doesn't have anything to do with that. They did this track design before they knew any of that. So just so you know. So now you know when you go to like the Mine Train at Walt Disney World, and even like Space Mountain and Big Thunder Mountain, those rides, those roller coasters were designed with those principles in mind. So it's a much less jarring and disturbing ride to ride because of that. So again, a little scientific fact. I don't know enough about it other than what I read, and that's the basics of it. So feel free to look that up. All right. So typically the average wait time, a lot. So I mean, it can be 30 minutes to an hour. All right. For the website I looked up, for the last 90 days, starting, right now we're in mid-October. So the last 90 days, so back to July, the average has been about 50 minutes for the average wait time. And I think a lot of that includes the fact that half of the ride has been closed. So any other little tidbits we want to talk about?
You have to be 42 inches to ride it.
Oh, right.
Again, there's max pass, there's single rider. When you do single rider, when both sides are open, you don't get to choose if you go left or right. They'll just put you in one of the lines, whichever one needs it. So keep that in mind. Versus when you're standing in the queue, they'll let you choose which one to go into. No expectant mothers, because like we said, it's way too jerky. And no wheelchair. So keep that in mind. And then there are two interesting facts that I think you should talk about, and that is the basketball hoop and the climbers.
So Timmy Wan What Have You fan Mario Childress from my hometown near Seattle, Washington, suggested in an earlier video that we talk about the basketball court or hoop that's in the Matterhorn mountain, and it's true. You can look that up. It's validated. They've got pictures of it. Originally, it was up higher in the top part of the mountain above the ride itself, in the upper floors of that building. And it was it was like kind of like a break area for the climbers, because there used to be climbers that would climb the mountain pretty regularly. Sometimes you could
see it. Yeah,
and so that was kind of just a break area. It wasn't like an official basketball hoop. It was kind of something that was just thrown together with a piece of wood and a laundry basket or something. It wasn't anything spectacular. There wasn't like a hardwood floor or blinds painted or anything. It was just there for people to shoot hoops and kind of relax between their shifts. And I think what I understand is they've since moved it down to the lower area below the ride where all the cast members go for their break areas. And same kind of thing, nothing fancy, just kind of there, and just kind of a thing. So that's it was kind of an urban legend. People thought that was a thing, but it's been made public quite a bit. So that covers the two kind of interesting tidbits, the basketball hoop and the mountain climbers. There also used to be a thing where, I think it was maybe in the 60th anniversary, where Tinkerbell would ride a zip line, basically, from the top of the mountain down to the castle, to Cinderella or Sleeping Beauty Castle. And I don't think any of that happens anymore. No. And if it does, that's kind of cool. Check that out. That's fun. But I don't think it does. So, all right. Any other things?
Nope.
All right.
Yep.
So, thank you for watching. Always comment with your questions or thoughts. If we've totally goofed, tell us down below. We want to make sure we're giving good data, good information. If you have thoughts about where we should go with this channel, I'm open to suggestions. We love Disneyland, but we also are open to different things to look into and explore. If you want to join us in a video, let us know. I mean, we might be open to that. We could do things like Skype or Google Hangouts and get you on the channel with us. So put it in the comments below. There's also, if you go to the About page, you can go, there's an email address. You can email me. We also have our physical address. If you want to send us something, you can send it to our mailbox. That's all there. Comment, like, subscribe, and share as always. And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.